Red, the colour of hell-themed levels in Geometry Dash. There have been a hell of a lot of hell levels, all seemingly forgetting that 90% of the colour wheel even exists. That, however, seems to be the only thing that these levels have in common. From castles surrounded by lakes of hot magma, to flashing, maze-like neon landscapes, the community has shown a very large variety in what we imagine hell to be. This always left me with a question though. Are any of these actually accurate? What would an accurate hell level actually look like? I mean, I've never actually been to the place, so I wouldn't know. Which is exactly why today, I'm going to go ahead and build a hell level in a place called Hellhole. Located in the middle of nowhere, aka Queensland, Australia, this place definitely lives up to its name. Here, life is sparse, with the most you'll see being small tufts of grey grass and twisting trees on the brink of death. Most importantly, however, the ground is a delicious, delicious red, which obviously means this is hell. Right now, I'm in the middle of a trip around Australia, and for the last couple days we've been camping here, just north of Krakow. It's a beautiful spot, but my accurate hell level won't build itself. Hellhole is about a 10-hour drive from Krakow, so we decided to break up the drive by camping at a few places along the way. We spent the first night at a spot on the side of the road, just outside of Roma, and despite getting there in t-shirt and shorts with the aircon on, by the morning everything was covered in frost. Already we were starting to feel the harsh sun during the day and the bitter cold of the night that the desert provides. As we continued on, the greenery was getting greyer and the dirt was getting redder, a sure sign that we were getting ever so closer to hell. It took a few more days and a hell of a lot of driving, but as the sun went down on the final day of travelling, we made it. Welcome to Hellhole Gorge National Park. It's a bit dark. Okay, there we go. Welcome to Hellhole Gorge National Park.
So hell's pretty cool, huh?
This place is unlike anything I've ever seen before. I've been to the Australian outback and seen plenty of red dirt, but something about the landscape here is so unique. The ground is just rock with a thin layer of dust. The trees are small and twisting, as if they've died and come back to life many times over. It really feels like you're walking on ancient land, before any of the geological processes you hear about that create the world that we have today have even happened yet. Turns out hell is actually a pretty beautiful place. A beautiful place to play Geometry Dash, that is.
It's time to build a hell level. I was trying to think, I'm like, what song should I use? Dr. Phonic's Firepower, hello? Now, I think I'm going to start off with a background here, because I have some really cool inspiration for a background. This photo right here, I thought would make for like a perfect sort of background. And it looks absolutely massive, but it's actually really small. But I think something like some sort of like rocky type terrain like this would be really, really cool for a background. So I want to try and do something like that maybe, which I'm a little bit nervous for. I don't want to go like full art style, because that's sort of not really my thing. The level would just turn out terrible. I feel like doing it more in a Geometry Dash sort of style is more my way of doing things, right? So something I want to like kind of harness is, see these two little holes in the side? I kind of want to have a few holes in it, so I want to use maybe these blocks. And then otherwise I can use sort of a combination of these crack objects like this, and these ones here as well. They're very different. I thought they were very similar, but they're actually very different. Okay.
Using one set of these crack objects, I laid out some basic background structures. Then I went over the same structures again with the other cracked objects, layered them above, and deleted about half of them randomly. The idea is to break up the monotonous crack texture by alternating them with a different crack texture, similar to combining stone and andesite in a Minecraft build. It was very rough and messy, but I felt like that fit the vibe of what Hellhole was like. From here, it was time to add some details.
And something that really struck me with this place, with Hellhole, is that, it's so funny calling it Hellhole, is that the rocks were like genuinely red. Like the rocks were very, very red. It was really, really bizarre. I say was. I'm still here. I'm recording this like while being here. I want to do some of like these going down sort of. Oh my god, I pressed the Windows key. Some of these going down sort of thing. Like, it's a bit messy, but it'll kind of do the job to be a background, right? I don't want it to be super like crazy for background. I'm going to select all of these and then give them like probably B4, and then I want to give this B3 so it's above all of those, and just sort of add a few of these like holes around the place. It adds something else to it. It adds another like like little point of focus, I guess, which you don't want a huge amount of in the background, I think, but I don't know what I'm doing, man. I'm just placing some objects down. Maybe add a couple of these little guys in here. These objects are like very, oh my god, I pressed the Windows key again. I'm not used to the laptop keyboard anymore, dude. I can't do it. But yeah, these objects I'm probably going to be using a lot just because, I don't know, that's just what this area reminds me of, are these objects so much. Look, it's a little bit funky, but honestly, when you're not sort of focusing on it, when you sort of see it from a distance, it kind of works. Like, it actually kind of works. I kind of dig it. So now, of course, I'm going to copy paste.
While I am happy with how this background turned out, I feel like it needed a couple more layers to really make it feel like a landscape. I did this using various objects that kind of vaguely look like mountains, along with these rotating objects to make it feel a little bit more Geometry Dash based. From there, I made everything move at different speeds to make a parallax effect, and boom, we have a background.
Sure, that's a cool enough background, that works. Again, very noisy and messy, but that kind of fits the theme, I feel like. This place is kind of noisy and messy, you know what I'm saying? Okay, now for the block design, I should probably come up with a bit of gameplay, actually. I think I want to start with an open air game mode. I was kind of thinking ball, but the thing with ball is that, like, I feel like these structures kind of insinuate there's a sky above it, but with this is like a ceiling above it. So we're looking at either robot or cube, or I could free move, but nah. Let's do robot. Let's be different. Let's be funky. You know what? Hell, I'm gonna go crazy mode and go mini. No way, dude. And of course, this has to be like at least extreme demon adjacent gameplay. Otherwise, what are we even doing here? Top 10 bits of gameplay, I delete immediately. I think that's kind of cool, and then we can just do some, I don't know, other robot gameplay. Okay, so I've got a very little bit of some pretty basic gameplay. Hopefully it's Extreme Demon, I don't know, I don't really care too much. I'm more just building this level for fun, I'm not taking it too seriously. But, I think it's about time to decorate. And one idea that I've had, like, pretty much since day dot, as soon as we rocked up and as soon as I saw the trees here, I knew I wanted to make a tree saw blade design. Something like, that looks like a tree with sort of branches kind of branching off. Because some of the trees in this place look absolutely sick, dude. They're so cool. It was hard to get a perspective in a photo, so I took a couple videos of, like, going around them, but like this one especially, I feel like we could definitely turn into a sort of saw blade design. So maybe instead of doing this spike, I'm gonna do a saw blade, and I was kind of thinking of doing these ones, and I actually do want to go ahead and make them green. It's kind of an odd color choice in a very red level, but I mean the trees here are pretty green, so you know, I want to do them green, and I'll do them a little bit desaturated as well, just to kind of match the Australian green desaturatedness. I'll up the brightness of the middle just a little bit, something like that. And what if I take a pulsing triangle here? This is just an idea I came up with just now, and kind of warp it? Ooh, yeah? How does that pulse? Does that still pulse like, well? The answer is it doesn't, okay. Cool, so I guess warped things don't pulse. That's unfortunate, because I really wanted to use a pulsing object. Maybe instead what I can do, which I kind of wanted to do anyway, is kind of bunch up a couple like this, and then maybe I can kind of bunch up some over here as well as like a secondary branch. And then even use this as a branch for it as well. What if I do that as two? Maybe brighten it up a little bit, and then have like some sort of design in there to indicate it's kind of like a branching thing, maybe like a spiral type thing. That kind of works, yeah. I dig that, I dig that. Maybe I can even, oh my god, okay, hear me out, right? That's sick! That's a really cool effect. I really like that, actually. I think that's really cool. Okay, and then I want to do something kind of on the outside that's a little bit subtle, but just to indicate that it's like a bush, I guess. Maybe some grass that's like scaled down a bit on that direction, scaled up a bit on that direction. And something I used in What the Base that I think would be really cool for the center of these is this guy here. If I do this guy and then give this a rotating group, it kind of morphs and shifts as it rotates, which I think is really cool. This color scheme is incredibly odd. It's really weird having the green and the red, but I kind of like it. It kind of works, to be honest.
Now, since recording this, I've learnt a couple more things with color theory. One of these is that red and green are actually complementary despite being not complete opposites on the RGB color wheel. This is because they actually are complete opposites on the RYB color wheel, which is used usually for paints. For reference, this is where combining blue and yellow makes green. I don't know, I just thought that was interesting, so I decided to let you know. Anyway, now it's time to add the trunks to the trees. I decided on these objects here and gave them a grey color to match the real world equivalent. This was looking alright, but there was a slight problem with this design.
It kind of blends into the background a little bit, if I'm being real. I think we can probably make that stand out a little bit. My initial idea is using low, but that's kind of boring, not gonna lie. What if I use some of these to have it like look like it's morphing around the tree, you know? Yeah, honestly, that makes it stand out a little bit better, which is nice. I dig that, yeah. And plus it makes it like a little bit more less static. More, less static, yeah, jeez. And then I can do a similar sort of thing for this. I don't want to do it for all of these blocks. I want to do something a little bit different for some of them. But for this block, I think that works very well. And I'll reuse that a little bit for show, dog. Okay, maybe this intro bit, what I can do is have you sort of coming out of a cave. Because this is a very rocky area, right? So having you come out a cave, I feel like would kind of work. Maybe even use some of like these objects here. Okay, so between you and me, this was a mistake. These objects look pretty simple, but it took me so long to figure out how to make them work. I just want to let you know, the way RobTop implemented these is kind of cool, but also really weird. Anyway, it doesn't matter, because I want to set all of these to group 7, and then I want to give them an area tint effect. Something like that, yeah, that's kind of neat. It kind of works. It's cool-ish. And then I can sort of reuse these rock objects wherever I'd like, which is kind of nice. It definitely needs something else over the top of it. It's very bland to start off, but that's okay. I'll figure something out later, I think. Okay, so now for the rest of these block designs. I kind of am thinking of doing some red brick. Like I say, the rocks around here are very red. Like, they're very red. And I kind of imagine if you cut them into bricks, they'd sort of look like nether bricks from Minecraft. So I kind of want to do something along those lines. I think that could be kind of neat. I reckon I could get away with making the structure even that big and then just adding like a couple spikes on here like that, maybe? I did this so I could extend the structure down, then shamelessly steal from RobTop with the classic block-in-block design. Then, in order to fill this out, well, that's where the bricks come in. I'm going to make them sort of a dark but desaturated red. Maybe not quite that dark, a little bit less saturated, maybe a little bit more on the maroon side. Maybe I'll go a little bit brighter with them, sure. Something like that. Yeah, that stands out against the background. That hue shift is actually beautiful, wow. Then for the inside, what I was thinking is doing some more cracks, which I think I might use these crack objects, because these crack objects are kind of, dare I say, cracked. Might even make these blending, just so they kind of stand out a little bit from the bricks around them. Obviously I need to do a backing block to those. That is really nice. I really like that. And then I think the only thing it's missing is just a little bit of glow around the outside. You thought I could go a whole level without adding glow? Foolish. Got pretty far though, eh? Good little structure. Woohoo! I'm also kind of tempted to add some pulsing objects kind of behind all of that. I think B2 is behind, right? Make them black and make sure they're like definitely behind. Just to add a bit more flair to it, you know? I feel like that could be neat. Yeah, that's kind of neat. I actually really like that. Okay. Alright, so now that we have 3 block designs I'm happy with, I've decided to apply them to some of the other structures in the layout. There's still way more that needs to be done, but this is a good base to build off of. From there, I decided to extend the gameplay to the end of the first part of the song, as it just wasn't long enough as it was. After I was happy with the gameplay for that, I of course gave it the same copy-paste treatment I did for the first half of the level. And it was at this point where one of my mates looked over my shoulder and wanted to see the level so far.
Hello.
Hello.
What the hell? Oh, whoa, that looks like Hellhole Gorge.
Do you like the tree?
Yeah, like the tree and the plateaus.
Yeah.
Captured it like 1 for 1.
With those insightful words from Tom, I was motivated as ever to keep working on the level. I think I want to take a bit of a break from the block design for now, and I want to focus on some extra little details to kind of bring it all together, because all the elements are kind of separate right now, right? So the first thing I want to do is try and add a little bit of water. Water in a hell level? Yeah, believe it or not, there's actually water in Hellhole. Hell has water, who would have known? And looking at the photos I took, it's got a very greenish, yellowish tint to it, so I think I'm gonna try and aim for that a little bit. And obviously my first thought is to use these water objects, but I don't know if I want to go for those, to be honest. Maybe I can do a combination of a couple things. So what if I do these sort of like on top in the background as like a little bit low opacity type deal? Yeah, just kind of ease the transition a little bit more into that. Then I can kind of do some of these perhaps. And then let's actually copy the color of 5, because I gave the color 5 some pulses, as you can see, like on the outlines and stuff. That's probably the biggest thing you mentioned that I forgot to talk about. And then I'll do one more layer that uses some of these lava type objects. I think that could be cool as like a more foreground type thing. How does that look? Ooh, yeah, okay. And then if I pulse this bottom one like some crazy, funky, kooky, crazy colors, maybe I can layer this like again. Yeah, I kind of quite like that. Now, something I was also trying to figure out how to do is to justify a lot of these floating blocks, because obviously some of them, they're trees. I sort of made a couple little connector deco bits, but I don't know how happy I am with that. But kind of a fun idea I came up with was taking some more inspiration from the real Hellhole, that being the flies. Oh my god, this place has so many flies, it's ridiculous. You go and you walk and you just like get absolutely covered in them. Hundreds and hundreds of goddamn flies. All you can hear all day is... Sorry, I'm losing my mind a little bit just thinking about them. So I thought that could be kind of a fun thing, because obviously flies fly. So what if the flies are sort of like carrying these and making them able to fly sort of thing?
In order to do this, I first tried to use these rotating objects. I tried making them rotate instantly to give the illusion of fast-moving flies, but they just weren't random enough. So then I did what I really should have done originally and used the ever-powerful particle trigger. This thing gotta be one of the best additions to 2.2, man. Once I had a good group of flies, I started placing a realistic quantity of them around the level.
Yeah, I really like that, dude. I reckon it looks really cool. And the drone of the song, the like... in the background kind of sounds like flies as well. I picked the perfect song, bro. I picked the perfect song. This is crazy. Cool beans. All right, so now I want to probably try and design something for these floating blocks. Now, at some point in the middle of this recording, I went for a quick walk and just had a look at some of the rocks, and a lot of them were like completely black as well. Like there were some just like straight up black rocks, which I thought looked pretty cool. So I want to try and like use that as well. Kind of add a little bit of variation in color so it's not just red. Red and black, guys, it's crazy variation. So what if I go like a dark gray instead of black? Just do like a brick. Here's one I prepared earlier type deal. It sort of needs something a little bit more though, just because it's a little bit simple, a little bit basic. What about one of these objects, but like shifted up to the corner like that? That kind of works. Yeah, just a little bit of extra detail there. I like that. Yeah, so I think for all these like floating little stragglers, I'm gonna do just these singular bricks and then maybe just add some random detail to it that isn't necessarily this little corner bit, but stuff like that, just to make like each one a little bit more unique, you know? Alright, well with that, that's all of the block design completely filled in, which is very nice, very happy with that. Could always add a few more structures around the place if I need in the end, but for now, I want to try and work on a spike design. Yeah baby, spike design, woohoo, I love spikes.
So I started by adding a rock over the top, then added a few more details. Unfortunately though, I just wasn't really happy with it. I tweaked the colors and design a lot, but it seemed like no matter what I did, I just couldn't make it work. By this point, that wasn't the only problem on my plate though.
Oh my god, this laptop is an inferno on my lap. It's so hot.
And so I decided to stop recording for the day and pick it back up later. Until there was a turn for the worst. The display on my laptop, the only way I can make videos while living on the road, completely broke. I spent a really long time fiddling with it. I was reinstalling drivers for hours. I even replaced the cable that connects to the display. And there were times of hope, but those were quickly followed by a much worse outcome. As you can probably expect, this totally halted any progress on this level in video, hence why the footage you just watched was recorded, let's see here, 2.5 months ago. Thankfully, I eventually managed to buy a new laptop, which brings us to today.
It's time to continue work on this and actually finish it. I have a good to-do list written down on my phone, so I guess we should just get started on it, which first thing I want to try and do is something with the background. Yeah, I know, I'm starting with the background again.
I selected all of these background structures here, copy-pasted them, and then made them black, creating a sort of shadow. I then scaled it up to make it move at a different speed, with the goal of introducing a bit more parallax. If you're not familiar, parallax is basically adding one or more extra layers to the background and moving them at different speeds in an attempt to create realistic looking depth. The only problem is that I scaled the faraway objects up, which just didn't look right. Objects further away look smaller, so what I did just doesn't make sense. So after adjusting the sizes and getting the movements right, I suddenly had a really good looking parallax effect in the background.
I think that looks really cool. Okay, I've literally never done a parallax effect before in my life, I don't think, so it was kind of hard to figure out how to do it, but now that I've got it, it's really, really cool. Basically, scale it down and move it faster. And that seems to work pretty cool. All right, let's check that one off the list. Better background. All right, so the next thing I want to try and do is I want to try and introduce a few pulses, because we actually only have like the outline here pulsing. That's the only pulse we have. First things first, I think these like dark blue bits of the water need to pulse a few different colors because it looks a little bit funky at the moment, I'm not gonna lie. Ooh, I kind of dig that actually.
I put those pulses at all the
parts, along with a slightly altered version for the last one. Then I added a couple smaller blue flashes to represent the little percussion bits in the background. Yeah, I think that's perfect. I think that's a perfect, like, amount of pulses I want for that. Alright, awesome. I am very happy with that, actually. I'm not gonna lie, I was a bit worried about these little dark blue bits. I was like, I'll sort it out later. But honestly, I think that kind of works. Adds a little bit of color to it. It's nice. And for the rest of it, I think I just want to, like, just add in some random pulses. Pulse the background a bit, pulse these trees a little bit as well, maybe to make them a little bit more saturated, you know, that type of thing. This all came together to make the level feel a lot more dynamic and interesting. Really is crazy what a couple pulses can do. Okay, so now I want to try something a little bit crazy. I'm really scared to try this, honestly. This is something I've wanted to include since I first started building this level, but it's just been super awkward to try and include. But when we were going for a wander, we stumbled across this rainbow sandstone here, which looked absolutely incredible. Like, I have no idea how this happened. I have no idea why it's like this. This isn't even like a tourist attraction. This was just, we walked up the creek and found it. It's just like absolutely incredible. And I really, really want to incorporate it into the level, but I'm kind of scared. It sort of transitions from yellow to purple in a lot of places, so that's sort of what I want to try and aim for. That's kind of why I wanted to pulse the background to a little bit more purple sometimes, just so it hopefully fits in a bit better. And I want to incorporate these on top of these giant structures here, because these are very, like, a lot of just the same. So I want to kind of cover some of that up with this rainbow sandstone, but I don't know what block I'm going to use to convey that, bro. I guess probably these ones. These ones are probably the closest to the sandstone, if I get the coloring right. Okay, let me look at the reference image. I found that these blocks had a little more contrast than I wanted, so in order to make them a little flatter, I made them a lot darker, then added some blending blocks over the top. This smoothened it out a lot more, making it a lot closer to the real life version. And then what I'm thinking is if I sort of grab these, change the hues a little bit. So I want to move this way on the hue slider. So let me slide it a little bit this way, maybe 10, and just sort of continue the pattern down the line until we have like a decent-ish gradient, right? So that'll be our gradient. If we combine both of these together, yeah, I like that. I reckon that's a pretty good gradient. I'm very happy with that. Okay, so this is a 2x2 section for each of these colors, so we can just sort of copy paste these around however we like, because if you only have like one line, you can see they don't connect up like that. So you sort of need a 2x2 segment. So that's what I've got here. So that's good. And I guess let me go ahead and let me make a bit of a shape here, and then we can copy paste those into place, I guess. Alright, cool. It feels out of place. I'm not gonna lie, it feels a little bit out of place, but when is rainbow sandstone not gonna feel out of place? Let's be real. So I think that is perfectly fine. I think I'm going to leave that, and I think I'm even going to copy paste that on top of the last structure as well. Is it obvious it's copy pasted? Kind of, but you know what? It's fine. You know what? I'm gonna transition it a little bit as well, I think. Just with a couple slopes sort of sloping off the corner bits just to make it a little bit less crazy. Oh, and even do some of the classic these things. Alright, cool. I think that blends in a little bit nicer into that, sort of transitions into it. I'm happy with that. I'm gonna keep that. Got the sandstone done. I'm pretty happy with that. Not gonna lie. Alright, now for a bit of a scary thing. I want to try and redo this spike design because I'm really not happy with it. So let's grab this spike up here. Let's do that. I want to get rid of those rocks. Get rid of them, man. That thing I'm not super happy with either. This bush can stay. What I could do is I could sort of try and make it look like sort of a little grass plant, because yeah, in Australia, a lot of the grass, like the native grass, come in like little grass plants. They're like little puffs of grass. They're pretty cool. And were there some of those around Hellhole? Yeah, there's a couple of them. There's a couple little grasses around Hellhole. So yeah, I think that's what I'm going to aim for, try and do here. How am I going to do that? I'm not 100% sure, to be honest, but I'll figure something out. It was a lot of trial and error, but eventually I came to a design I was pretty happy with. I ended up using a combo of this like slightly curlier grass and some of the spiky straight grass behind it. Spiky straight grass. That's a bit of a tongue twister. It definitely does cover the spike a little bit, which makes the spike a bit less visible, but honestly, I think that's fine. I don't know. I'm not too fast. I think it should be alright. Let's compare spikes real quick. Yeah, this one's way better than that one, bro. Oh my god. Let me just replace all the spikes with this spike real quick, and let's just see how it goes. Let's just see how visible it is. And yeah, I think those spikes look pretty good. They're like visible enough. You see a random bush, you're like, you know what's there. Now, after I just put it on the top here as well, I need to come up with a design for the half spike, which I think is going to be a very similar thing. I'm not going to lie. Something like that. Yeah, I think that works perfectly. Something I do really like with this half spike that I sort of accidentally did, but I want to carry over to the big spikes, is just layering the spiky grass behind the spike. I think that's really just like a cool little detail, you know? Gives it a bit more depth and a little bit more visibility. So I think I'm just going to select all of those and layer those behind. All right, and we've got all the spike designs in place. For these little tiny spikes, I just added a little tuft of grass over them just to like fit the vibe. And over here, I made these spikes layered a little bit nicer so they actually like fit in properly, which I think looks rather nice. I'm pretty happy with that. So I think we can check off the spike design part of the list also. I like having a list like this. I should do this more often. Okay, so for this last few to check off the list, I think I'm going to go into rapid fire mode. Ready? 3, 2, 1, go! Next thing I wanted to do was add some more details to the empty ground space where there isn't water. I basically just added spikes, rocks, and called it a day. Done. Next up was orb deco, which I did this cool effect by setting the rotation on these objects to different speeds, followed by a couple rapidly rotating bits over the top, just to add emphasis. Done. And last, but certainly not least, I needed to create a transition in and out of the level because it was feeling very awkward. I made the background move up into place at the start and made the player delve into darkness at the end. And done. And after adding a few more polishing touches and a few more details, I was very happy with how the level turned out. There is, however, one more thing I really want to add, and that being the Hellhole waterhole sign that you saw in the thumbnail. That is a real sign that exists that I did take that photo at, and I think I want to have it coming out of the water sort of around here. That's probably the best spot to put it just because there's a bit of empty space here, you know? Maybe put some of like these in between, not with that color scheme. That color scheme's kind of crazy. That also does pulse with the other ones, but I think that's fine. I reckon that's chill. Hell, hole, water, hole. And that is pretty long. I can get away with scaling it down and probably making it white blending instead of just white. Because as you can see, that sort of gets rid of the outline and then we can sort of make our own, really. I tried to do a sort of embossing effect by offsetting a darker version and a lighter version. Look, if I'm being honest, Triaxis did it way better in 2.0. Hellhole waterhole. That's it. That's the water right there. Waterhole. Nice. I think that's awesome. That's a perfect little last detail there. All right, so from there, I think I'm going to go ahead and call the level complete. I know it's just one part, but I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. And yeah, on to the final showcase, I guess. I'm gonna be honest, building this part was a very different experience to what I expected. There's something really unique about taking inspiration from the real world and trying to incorporate it in the most Geometry Dash way possible. So if you're struggling to come up with inspiration for your own levels, maybe take a step outside and notice the details of the world around you. That's easier said than done though. We are Geometry Dash players after all. Thank you for watching this video, and extra special thank you to all the members, especially Infdu. It's thanks to the support from you guys that I was able to afford a new laptop and continue making this video, so seriously, thank you. Really appreciate it. Thanks everyone, I'll see you later.